Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another Valentine's Day series video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a really cute illustrated cupcake. And because it is Valentine's Day very soon, we're going to make this a Valentine's Day themed cupcake. I'm using the Prima Watercolor Confections Complexion palette. And I've just started by creating a light wash of the cupcake wrapper. It's a very easy shape with a scalloped top edge. I used a lighter color for the base, and then I'm going to go in with a slightly darker shade, and I'm just going to create all of those little indents of the cupcake wrapper. As always, all of the supplies that I use are going to be listed in the description box below, so you can check those out. I also have a new Amazon shop that's going to be linked below as well, and that just includes a whole bunch of my recommended watercolor supplies. So right now I'm just using a number 6 brush and I'm just creating the little shapes that are going to represent the folds in the cupcake wrapper. So you're going to want to make sure the top of these are curved to match the scallops along the top edge. And then the lines get thinner as you go towards the bottom. You can kind of think of these as sort of like a comet shape. So you have the ball tip of the comet at the very top, and then the trailing edge goes down towards the bottom. So there's going to be a lot of drying in this tutorial. So I've just let the cupcake wrapper dry a little bit, and I've just created a little shadow effect using the same color that I used for the base of the cupcake wrapper, only a little bit more concentrated, so meaning not as much water added to it. Now I'm just going to create the cake base of the cupcake using a brown shade, and I'm just kind of creating a little sort of like a hot dog shape coming out of the wrapper, and I'm making sure to follow those scalloped edges. And while the paint is still wet, I'm taking a darker color and I'm just dotting that on the scalloped edge line just to add a little bit of shadow and depth. Now with that dry, I'm just going to take this light pink color, and I noticed that this color has a lot of white added to it, so it's really opaque, but it's going to make a nice base for the cupcake. So I'm gonna kind of mimic that little brown hot doggy shape that I made previously, only I'm gonna bring the sides in a little bit so that it is not as long as the brown one. And this is going to be the icing, so fill that in just as I'm doing here. Because the layer below it is dry, you don't have to worry about the colors blending together. And I want to add a bit of a shadow type depth to the icing as well. So I'm just taking another brown shade. This one is a little bit more of a reddish brown, and I'm just applying that along the very bottom edge. And I'm going to let that blend out, and then I'm going to use my brush as well to blend that out, and even a dry brush to pick up some of those extra watery bits that I don't want in there. And I'm just using my hair dryer to speed up the drying process. Some of you had asked me in some previous videos if I ever use a heat tool or a hair dryer, and the answer is yes. I pretty much always use a hair dryer to dry my pieces. I keep it right next to my watercolor area, so it's nice and handy all the time. So I'm just doing the exact same thing on the next tier of icing, only I've made this one narrower as well. And this pink color that I'm using, it is a little bit more difficult to blend. I think it is because there's like white added to it or something. It's just really thick. So I'm going to dry that tier, and then we're going to move on to the final top tier of the cupcake. And this one again is narrower than the other two, and it's going to sort of swoop upwards at the very top to create sort of a dab effect, like a droplet. So just create that shape, and then again add in the darker color and blend it out. I'm gonna dry this whole thing really well because we're gonna go back in and on top of some of the painting that we've already done. So I'm just mixing up a slightly darker shade of pink. I believe I mixed the pink just with a tiny bit of one of the reddish browns to create kind of this darker peachy color. And I'm just going to swoop that across the bottom edges of the icing. And then once again, I'm gonna grab my hair dryer and dry all of those shadow areas. And then I'm gonna go back in with the same color and I'm gonna go over what I just did, focusing on the edge a little bit more and sort of dragging that line upwards just a tiny bit to kind of create a really subtle gradient effect. And then I'm taking that yellowish color that I used previously and I'm just going over the shadow that I did at the bottom once again, just to intensify that little shadow a little bit more. And using a black shade here, I've diluted it with a bit of water and I'm just defining that scalloped edge. Now it's time to paint a little heart at the top because again, this is a Valentine's Day cupcake, so we have to keep with our theme. I've used a little bit of a Indian red from a different palette that I had active, and I'm just gonna fill in a little heart shape here and add a little bit of a black to the one edge and the bottom, again, to create a little bit of depth. And while that dries at the side here, I'm gonna create these two little candy sticks. They're gonna be kind of like those striped peppermint looking candy sticks sticking out of the cupcake. So I've just started with a light base and then I will be adding stripes to these shortly. I wanted to add a little bit of a shadow underneath the heart here so it looks like it's sitting on top of the cupcake and not just floating there. So I've just taken a darker shade of that pink and added it to the bottom area and blended that out. And then to darken the heart a little bit more, I've added a tiny bit of permanent rose on top of it. I kind of fiddle with the heart a little bit in this tutorial because I just want it to be darker and more vibrant. And one more time, I'm going over those shadow areas. I thought they were a little too harsh still, so I was just trying to blend out the edges a little bit more. And once again, drying the entire thing, making sure everything is nice and dry. Now I'm gonna create those candy stripes. So I've just mixed up a color here. I believe it was the same color that I used for the shadows of the icing. And I'm just creating little stripes. You wanna make sure that you kind of wrap the end a little bit around the cylinder shape. You can see here the edge of my stripes kind of go up a little bit. That's just gonna help it look a little bit more round. And then so that our cupcake isn't floating in space here, I wanted to create a little bit of a shadow so that it looks like it's actually sitting on a flat surface. So I wet the paper first just with clean water and I've sort of started dropping in a little bit of darker color. It started with brown and I didn't think that was dark enough, so I went in with a tiny bit of black and I just blended that out nicely. I'm going back to the heart again because I wanted it darker still, so I mixed up a little bit of Indian red with lamp black and I'm just applying that on the one edge and then filling the rest of the heart in with another layer of Indian red mixed with a tiny bit of permanent rose. And then I'm gonna dry that one more time. Now it's time for the fun part. I love this part. I think it just brings the whole piece together. I'm using my Posca white paint pen here and I'm just creating all of these shiny little highlight areas. This is really gonna help make things look a little bit more three-dimensional. Just adding the shines makes it look so yummy and juicy and delicious. So I've just added a couple strokes to each of the icing bits and then vertical lines down the candy stripes and then a couple spots to the heart, and I'm adding a little tiny bit of dots to the actual cupcake cake. And I defined some of the scalloped areas with the pen as well. And then I went back in and just added a couple more dots just for texture and a little bit of interest. So there is my Valentine's Day cupcake. I hope that you guys liked this tutorial. If you did, please give the video a big thumbs up. It really helps me out. If you have not subscribed, please do that soon. I put out new videos now every Tuesday and Friday. So I really, really hope to see you guys in the next one, and I'll see you later.